congratulations. We had a wonderful opening evening at the CUNY Graduate Center at the James Gallery last night with a concert. And it was a beautiful, beautiful opening. And tonight, we are going to have a conversation between faith leaders. So when Manuel and Dionigi and I do our work in the shared sacred sites as sociologists and anthropologists and historians, we actually talk to the people, to the locals who are doing the pilgrimage, who are praying in each other's sites. We listen to them. We watch them do their pilgrimage. We watch their behavior. We do ethnography. And we really take the narratives and the stories of the pilgrims themselves, of the people who come to these sites and believe in the sharing that they are actually practicing. So a lot of our material comes from the locals. We also have interviewed and put on online interviews with the faith leaders, with those priests and Sufi sheikhs and rabbis in different places that have actually built bridges between the religions, that have made it possible for people to share and to accommodate to each other. And those interviews, some of them actually, you can see them at the CUNY Graduate Center in the James Gallery. They're part of the show. So tonight, we decided for tonight, the three of us, while talking about the events, we decided to actually have a conversation between faith leaders and faith leaders who have themselves been global figures, figures who have worked on the living together, on coexistence, who in their own spaces have actually promoted that, who have been bridge builders. So we chose three fantastic faith leaders, one from each religion, and we want to give them a forum to discuss these ideas. We were incredibly fortunate to actually have Anissa Mehdi, who is an Emmy Award-winning journalist and filmmaker, to join us and moderate this wonderful event. And actually, Anissa is also the executive director of Abraham's Path Initiative, which I don't have time to explain to you here, but you should go online and see what it does, and it is a wonderful project. She's the executive director. And before I end, I want to say one more thing. Anissa also did a frontline documentary called Muslims, giving this incredible diversity of the Muslim world in all its political, cultural diversity and richness. And it is a tremendous effort to actually tell, especially in America, tell an alternative story again, a different story of who Muslims are, and that it's not this view we have of one very homogeneous set of people. And for that as well, I thought she would be an incredible addition to this conversation. So I'm so happy and so honored to have you all, and it's your show.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Anissa Mehdi, Executive Director of Abraham Path Initiative, and I want to thank Karen Barkey for the great honor I have to interview and listen to these remarkable human beings this evening, and then to hear some of your questions. Similar to the vision of shared sacred sites, Abraham Path Initiative promotes an alternative narrative of the peoples and the places and the cultures in the region we specifically imagine Abraham may have walked through. We call that area the Middle East. Tonight we're going to shed a different light on the peoples of that region, the Abrahamic peoples, a light that is often hidden in the headlines and by the headlines. And having worked in American mainstream television news for 20 some odd years, I feel like I should apologize for that. But the good news is, tonight, we're going to counter the false news and fake news and really get a sense of the spiritual descendants of Abraham and know that they are not necessarily, we are not necessarily incompatible. Historians have known that for centuries. Artists have known that for centuries. Musicians have known that for centuries. And so tonight, we are going to hear from leaders of different religious traditions who are from all corners of the world, or many corners of the world, who will help guide us back toward the inclusivity that our ancestors may have done better than we in terms of sharing sacred spaces and sacred sites. On the far right, on my far right, on your left, Cheikh Khaled Bentounes joins us from Algeria, where he leads the Al-Alawi Sufi congregation. He's a writer, a teacher, and speaker. Cheikh Bentounes brings a traditional Sufi learning to new audiences, mostly in Africa and Europe. He's worked diligently in France to, what I'll say, normalize Islam and Muslims, and we know that's an uphill struggle in Europe and France in particular with the migration and many attacks of terror and, in fact, residual prejudice against Muslims and Jews. A proponent of interfaith and international coexistence, Cheikh's most recent triumph is the establishment of the International Day of Living Together in Peace. This day was approved by the United Nations General Assembly last December, and on May 16th this year, we can all enjoy together the first annual International Day of Living Together in Peace. Cheikh Bentounes will be speaking in French, and we have Isabelle Duchesne translating for us. So there'll be that back and forth. Now, next to me, Cláudio Carvalhaes. I was working on it. Carvalhaes from Brazil, Sao Paulo. His doctorate in liturgy and theology from Union Theological Seminary in New York is put to good use as a teacher and writer. Judging from what I've seen you say on YouTube, this is a man who does not shy away from edgy issues like the intersection of theology and sexuality and race and class. I don't know if we're going to get there tonight, but I want to tempt you, so you go and look there also.
Thank you.
He has worked in Methodist, Presbyterian, and Lutheran traditions to give you a sense of his ecumenicism. His two most recent books are What Does Worship Have to Do with It? Interpreting Life, Church, and the World Liturgically, and also Preaching and Liberation Theology, Metaphors for Our Time. And from the western side of the South American continent, we have Rabbi José Rolando Matalon of Buenos Aires, Argentina. Rabbi Matalon was ordained at Jewish Theological Seminary across the street from Union on the Upper West Side. He is now senior rabbi at B'nai Jeshurun here in New York City. He was mentored by and then honored to take the pulpit from Rabbi Marshall T. Meyer, who was a pioneer in the metropolitan area's interfaith efforts and an emerging movement. Do you remember the days when interfaith meant Catholics and Protestants meeting together? Right? And then it meant Jews and Christians meeting together. And in the 1990s, I think Muslims became recognized as part of the legitimate family of Abraham in the New York area. So we've come a long way, haven't we?
We have.
Yes.
There's still a long way to go.
Rabbi Matalon has received awards from the New York Board of Rabbis, the Jewish Peace Fellowship, and the New Israel Fund. So he is also a student of Arabic and Turkish music and plays the oud. Welcome to all of you. So we're here honoring an art exhibition. So I want to start, Rabbi, with you. You've seen some of the art downstairs, and you've seen some at the CUNY Center, Graduate Center. Which piece, can you name a piece that speaks to you and evokes some of the greater sensibility of what the curators are trying to do?
Thank you for having me. Thank you for Karen for inviting us. At the entrance of the room downstairs, where this magnificent exhibit is displayed, there is a drawing. There's a print of a drawing of Jerusalem. I was talking to one of the curators, Dr. Dionigi was here. He was telling me that this print of Jerusalem became iconic, that many people in their depiction of Jerusalem based themselves on this drawing later on. And of course, Jerusalem is a central place for the three faiths, for Jews, for Christians, for Muslims. It is a place, according to our tradition, the Jewish tradition, that is the place where the universe was born. It was created and generated out of this place. It is the place where there's a direct connection between heaven and earth. So there's no mystery why this place is such a central spiritual place for the three traditions. And it's a place of pilgrimage. It's a place that symbolizes peace. It's a place that symbolizes the future that we all envision, desire. You don't see in that drawing all the pain and the divisiveness and the division and the hatred that has been experienced in Jerusalem, particularly in recent decades, but even before. The exclusion, Jews have been excluded from Jerusalem when the temple was destroyed in the year 70. Soon after that, Jews were excluded from that place for a very long time. And so in that drawing, that depiction, you don't see any of this. You see just a landscape of the city of Jerusalem that evokes all the things that we want from Jerusalem, that we aspire in Jerusalem, that pulls us in from Jerusalem. So, it's immediately at the entrance. Those of you who are going to visit, look at it in the entrance. On your left, above the wall, above the, some place where some of the books are displayed, you'll see this picture.
You're giving a lot of responsibility to a piece of art. I'm wondering if maybe, Claudio, can art really bring us to that sense of unity, tranquility, essence, origin that Rabbi Matalon is indicating?
Yes, I think, thank you very much for being here, and very happy to be here. I think art can be that, and in some ways it is great that it does that. But also in some ways it creates exactly the opposite, so we can actually see what is not there, or what it needs to be seen or needs to be felt and thought. And so, for instance, when I see a work of art, there's one book there, it's called the Book of Hours, from the 15th century, and there's a picture of Mary there. It's a beautiful picture. And when you see that, it is juxtaposed with a sutra mentioning of Mary from the Quran. So when you put things in this way, juxtaposed, what it does, the work of art, what it does is just it creates possibilities, right? And your mind can also go places. So when I see that, I say, well, Mary is fundamental. But not only Mary, but then I think about all of the women of our tradition that it is not mentioning so often, but how how Sarah and Hagar are fundamental to our being here. How Mary and Lydia and so many other women are bringing us here. So that's the power of juxtaposing and bringing that which is not there in our traditions, but the art can bring this memory, those references. And then if you see that in a book of prayer, then as a Christian, I think, so the two basic things of the Christian prayer is gratitude and say, God, thank you, and God have mercy. And when I see that in juxtaposition, when I am in that room with these three faith represented, so my prayer is adjusted to them. So my prayer to God is, God have mercy for me not considering my brothers and sisters for other traditions. And then my prayer of thanksgiving is to say, God, hallelujah, because they are there. So.
Cheikh Bentounes, there's a belief, I think, we hold common here that art is haram or forbidden in the Islamic traditions, and I would love for you to begin by dispelling that, and then also speaking to the value of art in the space, the worship space, the sacred space of Islam.
Je crois que pour tous qui connaissent, les personnes qui connaissent la tradition musulmane, savent que l'art dans l'islam a une place exceptionnelle dans l'élévation de l'âme, donc à nourrir les consciences. La grammaire, on commence par la grammaire. La grammaire de la langue arabe, c'est quelque chose qui a été nourri par la spiritualité. Donc, si l'art même d'écrire contient le spirituel, c'est qu'il nous appelle à un art, même s'il est abstrait. Il est entre l'ombre et la lumière. Il ne montre pas l'image, il ne cache pas, il ne montre pas. Il laisse chacun de nous construire par sa conscience ce qui est pour lui l'absolu.
Let's give Isabel a chance.
So I believe the art is really exceptional, and it is a very important element to elevate and highlight our mind, and it's like a grammar, and it is in the Arabic language. It's something that is really important to feed our spirituality, and the art of writing is something that really includes spirituality, and so it brings us to an art, and it's a matter of shade and light, and what is not shown by a concrete image, it still lets it being built in our soul, in our mind.
And you speak there about the calligraphy, and when you go downstairs, you will see these glorious books on display at the library here.
La calligraphie nous amène aussi à poser la question sur les miniatures que nous avons dans l'exposition d'ailleurs. Très belles miniatures. Et l'école de la miniature a commencé en Afghanistan. C'est la première école qu'on a dans l'islam, c'est l'école afghane, qui plus tard se retrouve en Iran et en Inde moghole. Et nous avons quelques images en Syrie du temps des Abbassides et à Grenade, en Espagne, qu'on a découvert récemment, qui étaient cachées. On a trouvé des figures dont le généraliste de Grenade, dans le palais de Grenade, qui était caché jusqu'à récemment, donc il y a 2-3 ans, on a découvert ces chefs-d'œuvre qui étaient cachés. Donc, on ne peut pas dire que les musulmans ne font pas de la représentation. Il y a eu de la représentation.
Let me just give her a chance to bring the rest of us into this.
So, regarding calligraphy, actually there were also miniatures, and that I saw in the exhibition, and actually they started in Afghanistan. The first school of Islamic visual art started with the miniatures in Afghanistan, then it moved to Iran, and then to the Mongolian India. And so there were a few images also in Syria with the Abbasids. And then a few years ago in Granada, there were some works of art, Islamic works of art that were hidden and that were found in the Palace of Granada. And so these works of art were hidden, but they were existing. So even within the Muslim community, there are some visual works of art.
So we're looking here, we've been talking about inclusivity in terms of the artistic expression and the response to art. But I think we could probably also agree that within our distinct religious traditions, there are exclusive moments. I may have an Arab background, but I cannot read Arabic as easily, and I certainly can't interpret most of the calligraphy that is so gorgeous. But there are other rituals and rites that speak to exclusion rather than inclusion, and I don't want us to be just Pollyanna here together tonight. So let me start with you this time, Claudio, on exclusivity in Christian practice. I can think of a few things, but why don't you jump in?
I think one of the gifts of this exhibition is to actually point us to what exists. And not as a rare thing, but as possibilities of what is there, as a result of a long past of life lived together. So I think what have happened to us is that the political scene that we are living everywhere, it is shaping our feelings and our understandings of our faith as well. So I think we are caught into this discourse that tries to place us in very simple binaries, right? It is us and them, faith and unfaithful. We need somebody to be our infidels or our devil sent, so that we can fight. So there's this thing of we have to fight over each other. So if you as being my different, unless I see you as my enemy, so I have to either fight or flight, right? And so I have to destroy you or run away from you. And I think this is not a narrative that we have in so many places in our histories, right? That we need to undo, to go back, like this animosity between Jews and Muslims. It's also a creation of it too, right? And how the Christians see other religions as a threat has not necessarily been the same. If you get the early Christianity, there's a space for everybody to eat together, and a place in the meal. It comes from the Elijah chair, but it has this thing that during Jesus Christ, you had this chair that somebody could come that had nothing to do with your meal, and take over the entire discussion, because it was inside of the possibility of living together. So I'm just mentioned. Have you seen the movie Where Do We Go Now? It is a brilliant movie. That was, I think, 2015. I have the name of the director here with me. I don't remember. But it is a fantastic movie that talks about one community of people who are the same culture, speak the same language, do the same jobs, eat the same food, but they are, half of it is Muslim and half of it is Christian. So, and they're living together for times immemorial. But then something happens, the TV comes in. And they start to see that Christians and Muslims are fighting elsewhere. So what was a peaceful life until then becomes a strife. And now the hot-headed men of the community start to go after each other, and the priest and the imam cannot do anything. And then the women are fantastic. You should see this movie, because what happens is that they are killing each other. You know what the women does? They convert to the other religion. So one morning, all of the Muslims wake up to their wives holding the crucifix and the Bible and praying the Christian prayers. And the Christians wake up in the morning and see their wives with the hijab and with the Quran and praying the Muslim. And they are totally lost. So at the end, I'm going to give you the spoiler. If you don't want the end, just start to sing la, 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 la. But at the end, because they have messed up so much, where do you belong when they go to the cemetery? There's the one side is the Christian and the other side is the Muslim. So when they arrive there with the funeral and the casket, they have changed so much. They look and say, where do we go now? I think that's what we need. We need to keep asking this question, where we go now.
Where do we go now?
So look, I believe that we need to. I believe that we need to live both inside and outside, exclusive and inclusive, particular, universal. We have to learn to do this dance. We don't live in one place alone. We don't. We are in between creatures. We're created between heaven and earth. We are created in an in-between place. We have to learn how to live in both places at the same time and do this dance. I think that the world, humanity would lose if we wouldn't have the particular of each tradition, each religion, each culture, each language, each music. At the same time, I think humanity is losing by the fact that we're all in our own little turfs, our own little province. We take care only of our own, and we are only concerned for ourselves and our own, and those like us. I think it's important to cultivate the particular, but to know how to go into the sharing, into the common, into learning from each other. The Sheikh was talking before about Arabic grammar. You know how much Hebrew poetry owns to Arabic grammar? Hebrew poetry from the 10th century and on developed and unfolded and grew into something absolutely beautiful because it was influenced and it imitated Arabic grammar. This is just one example. Jews have lived in all these places. We've been influenced by the music, by the culture of all the places where we've lived, all the way from India, and even there were Jewish communities in China, but let's say from India all the way to the West, in Northern Africa and in Spain, and then in the New World. We've lived in all these places, and we have absorbed, and at the same time, we've learned more or less how to keep our own individual selves, our own particularism, influenced, has taken all the, for people who are familiar, Jews who are from Turkey, they pray with Turkish music. Jews who are from Iraq, they pray with Iraqi music. Jews who are from Poland, they pray in Polish music, right? And so how do we do this dance? I think is difficult. It's complicated, but it's holy, and also to be able to be in dialogue, in conversation, to learn from each other. I don't want to be Christian, and I don't want to be Muslim, and I don't want my colleagues to be who they are not. But I want to be able to understand. I want to be able to learn. I want to be able to grow in my spirituality because of them. I want to be able to witness them in prayer. I don't pray in Christian, and I don't pray in Muslim. I pray in Jewish. But I want to be able to witness them in prayer so I can understand their spirituality and their soul and learn from that. And know that at the very core, we all have, at the very core, it's the same human soul. And so that's, I think, what's so difficult for us. And all the politics of religion and all the politics of politics, I think, are what's so difficult to transcend in order for us to be able to get to that place.
You know, I know very little of Sufism, but what I do know is that it is about a transcendence from self to some unity, something greater. What road would you recommend for us to do exactly what Rabbi is saying here, to be able to have our own with integrity and also that experience of other that as not a threat?
Je crois qu'il faut replacer le problème dans le contexte de la réalité que nous vivons aujourd'hui. Notre monde, aujourd'hui, a tendance à se développer dans l'horizontalité. La verticalité nous manque, cette transcendance. Et cette transcendance, elle impose des valeurs d'humanité, des valeurs de fraternité, des valeurs de sincérité, des valeurs du vrai. Et notre monde qui se développe toujours à plat, toujours avec de nouvelles technologies. Comment aujourd'hui, avec les outils de communication, nous ne savons pas encore transmettre à nos enfants quelque chose qui les unit, quelque chose pour qu'ils préparent leur avenir ensemble, l'un avec l'autre et pas l'un contre l'autre.
What I would like to talk about is how to replace the problems regarding the reality we're living in today. In our world, while it is developing everywhere in all kinds of horizons, there is transcendence. There are ways, and it implements values. It stimulates the humanity, the fraternity, the sincerity. And so nowadays, it is really the world, while it is developing, it's developing on a very flat level with technology and communication and media and so on. But we still don't know how to convey to our children how they can live together, how they can be united, how they can move forward together.
This is very deep. No, it's true. I mean, you know, this sense that we are advancing and advancing and advancing, but we're advancing on the surface, and there's no, you know, both the depth go in the profundity, but also in the verticality, you know, to ascend. I mean, to use the metaphor, to build that and to build that together. To build that together. I mean, we can build together, you know, to the ends of the universe horizontally. We'll never get anywhere in this because the what we're looking for is not out there. What we're looking for is down and in this dimension, and that we have to build together. That doesn't have a claim, you know, it doesn't have a territory. It's not Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Jain. It's something we have to look for in spirituality together. I think it's very deep,
and
what you're
if
saying.
I understood what Cheikh said, the word courage was there too. It takes courage, doesn't it, to be able to go down and go up rather than live a horizontal life?
Yeah.
Where does the courage come from? Where does our faith give us courage? Where do the sacred spaces give us courage?
I think if our religions don't serve to help us to be free, then there is something wrong. And it is the very courage to be free that makes me connect, that makes me go to somebody else's house, to witness somebody else's prayer, to even pray somebody else's prayer, perhaps, because there's this freedom that we are expanded. And I think this is one of the gifts of our traditions, is to make us free. And I think the courage is always already there. It is for us to learn how is it that we can. And I think a lot of the struggle is because you're so fearful, as if we have to protect God from something. We have to be the watchdogs of God. If we don't work, God's going to disappear, or something is going to happen. No. And this. And I think that the closest we get to the earth, because if we're talking about shared sacred sites, the earth is a sacred site, and it's our task to share it. Because if the earth belongs to God, then it belongs to none of us, and so it belongs to all of us. Which means that we have to take on private property, and who has a lot, who has little, because it belongs to God. If we are having too much, I think there's something wrong with our religion that does not have a moral imperative of sharing, the courage to actually live deeper into those places that are very complex. And I know I'm saying something really... And I'm not going to answer a question after that. But I think that our religions give us the courage. It's already there. If we become free, and that's my hope, to become free.
Were there some? I know we were waiting for some questions from the audience. Shall we take a couple of them now? Because it is this courage we're going to return to. We're looking to you. I'm looking to you. I don't want to speak for everybody in this room, but for that leadership that says, what are the steps that I may take in order to empower my own courage, and in order to empower my community and my children to go vertical. Maybe that's the theme we come out of this room with. Go vertical. They're on my seat. Well, she was so subtle. I missed that entirely. Okay, great. Thank you. So we have a few questions from our audience. Let's see what we can... Social media is the ultimate shared site, if you think about that, right? Sacred or not. But does the use of social media threaten the existence of shared sacred spaces? Maybe the physical ones, or does it help preserve them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who wants to take that first?
I mean, I think social media is wonderful. I mean, it does wonderful things. It connects people in wonderful ways. It disseminates information in wonderful ways. We also know it can be taken advantage of. People can be taken advantage in terrible ways. We've heard about this in the last couple of weeks in particular. The question is not about the technology itself. The question is about the content. What's the content? What are we disseminating? Are we disseminating values and truth and depth and aspiration and vision and hope for humanity, for each other? Are we disseminating connection? Are we disseminating knowledge? If that's so, then it's wonderful. If we're disseminating trash, if we're disseminating violence and hatred and division, divisiveness and exclusivity and all those things, then it's terrible. So it depends what we do with it. Now, I think, as you indicated, it's not a substitute for direct encounter. I think that, there's a limit. I experience a certain, even with all the wonderful aspects of social media, there's a limit to the encounter, that you can go thus far. And I think it's important to be, and as this title of this exhibit is about. It's about shared, it's about sacred, and it's about spaces. And if you can bring those things, the shared for sure is part of social media, but is the sacred, and it's the sacred space part of it, it's a question. It's a question. I just briefly want to say, my congregation worshipped in a church for 26 years until last year. Because of a problem with our ceiling, we had to move out. And we ended up being embraced and taken in by the generosity of a local church 2 blocks away from our congregation. It was an incredible experience of real sharing and learning and growing spiritually. We didn't do any syncretism. We didn't just create some sort of new service that was Christian-Jewish. It was Christians had their service, Jews had their service. Sometimes we did some things together. We learned a lot from each other. We shared a lot of social justice work together. We looked at issues of racism, and we looked at issues of, all sorts of things. And it was an incredible experience. I don't know that social media could have accomplished that.
I think if we are to do a paraphrase with the Psalms, we can say, I look to the outlets where my power comes from, instead of looking to
lift your eyes to the
I lift my eyes to the outlets, to the walls, where the outlet come from. Or the Google is my shepherd, and who shall I fear? And I think we are living in a place that the real and the virtual are so confused. Yeah. I mean, you say, you cannot have an experience through virtuality. People get healed. I mean, it started long ago when I remember in Brazil, you put a glass of water on top of the radio and the preacher would pray and say, now I'm blessing this water, it's about to take, and you take it and you're going to be healed. And the damn thing would actually do something. And people have sex through virtuality. I think what is for us is that it plays with the notions of proximity and distancing. Yeah. Right? It approximates us too much in a way that breaks us. And it does not allow sometimes to get so close in ways that we need to. So I think it is for us to be always attentive, and it is a whole sense of a power dynamics. The United States just passed a bill that now we don't have access to, who has the power of the internet now, right? Some companies now have the power of it. I think it is for us to play with both and use the best we can to approximate what is distance and give us distance to what is too close. And so... I could go on, but yeah.
Do you want to make a comment on social media too?
Alors, les réseaux sociaux, je voudrais surtout parler des lieux sacrés. Qu'est-ce que cela signifie pour nous? Ce qu'il faut qu'on puisse dire aujourd'hui dans un lieu comme celui-là, pour une exposition qui nous rappelle et qui nous ramène vers Abraham, un lieu et un être humain historique, que la tradition musulmane appelle humanité. Abraham est une humanité. Ce n'est pas un homme, c'est une humanité. Donc le sacré, c'est d'abord, est-ce qu'il est en nous? Est-ce que nous le portons pour pouvoir à la fois être en communion, en lien avec lui et avec nos semblables. C'est ça le sacré, c'est la vie, la sacralité de la vie. L'islam, nous avons la Mecque comme lieu de pèlerinage vers lequel tous les musulmans du monde entier prient tous les jours. Ce lieu-là, qui est un lieu sacré. Qu'est-ce qu'il désigne? C'est que dans ce lieu, on ne peut pas porter atteinte à la vie. Sa sacralité, c'est de ne pas porter atteinte ni au végétal, ni à l'animal, ni à l'humain. Et même le minéral. On ne peut pas déplacer une pierre de sa place. Donc la première notion du sacré, c'est le respect de la vie. Humaine, animale, végétale et même minérale. Ça va très loin. Mais c'est dans un espace. Juste un espace. Pour nous donner l'exemple. Comment voulez-vous que les réseaux d'aujourd'hui, le sacré dans nos réseaux, il est où?
So, regarding the social spaces, I think the most important thing are the sacred spaces, because they're really very significant for all of us. To say here that this person has such an interest into something, I would like to go back to Abraham. Abraham, for the Muslims, is not only God, but is also a historical human being. And so according to Islam, he's somebody who belongs to us, and we do carry him inside of us. So we try to be in connection with him and also with our own fellows. And so that's why for us, life is a very sacred space. And then when we are talking about Islam, we pray every day. We pray in a sacred space. And that is what it is. And we cannot really let anything affect the life. And in that sense that we are respecting the vegetables, the plants, the minerals, and we cannot go without respect for all of that, to be unrespectful of human beings, of animals, of the plants, of minerals. All of this is part of our space. So and that gives us a very good example. So I don't know really what we can think in that situation about the social media.
Yeah, that was a very provocative question. Yes, where is the sacred
in the social media?
In social media.
Right on.
And it may be that we have to generate that part of it, because it's not going to go away.
No.
Social media is here to stay, and it's going to probably get more complicated.
Right.
With holograms and whatever is next.
Coming, next. Absolutely.
I'm aware of time, as a moderator ought to be, but one of our audience members has actually provided what I think will be an excellent final question for us. And I want you to take this in as an answer that may be practical, but also visionary, okay, instructive and inspiring. The question is, for all of our panel, what is your vision for a sustainably shared Jerusalem? This brings in the pain, it brings in the love, it brings the sharing, it goes back to the piece of art that you started with, Rabbi. And perhaps we'll start this time with Cheikh Bentounes and then come this way.
Voilà l'exemple même de de l'exploit que notre civilisation a réussi. Faire de la ville 3 fois sainte la source qui doit normalement fraterniser les cœurs, on en a fait la source de la division. C'est extraordinaire. C'est extraordinaire de voir que la modernité au lieu de nous apporter les moyens d'aller vers la synergie, elle nous amène encore vers la séparation. Si nous avons aujourd'hui un espoir, c'est bien celui-là. C'est comment la ville de la sagesse, la ville 3 fois sainte pour les chrétiens, pour les juifs, pour les musulmans. Puis il reste un lieu où personne n'a le tout, chacun a une partie et comment mettre les parties en harmonie. C'est là qu'on doit démontrer qu'il existe encore en nous le moyen de se relier à cet esprit d'humanité qui est inscrit dans toutes les sagesses des traditions. C'est un pari énorme. On le gagne ou on continue à faire la politique de l'autruche, on ne veut pas le voir, et les problèmes vont s'accentuer, se multiplier. Elle est à l'image de notre monde. C'est peut-être, ça c'est le fond de ma pensée. C'est peut-être que je suis marginal, je suis en dehors, mais je peux ici témoigner que le jour du 8 décembre 2017, il y avait 193 pays qui ont voté la journée internationale du vivre ensemble en paix. Alors, il faut la réaliser. On l'a voté, maintenant il faut la réaliser.
Amen. Amen. You have to invite him more often.
So I think that, for example, Jerusalem, it's really a very good example of a way for our civilization to reach a system altogether, because this city is incredible. It is 3 times the source of what brings us toward fraternization and to get to connection and to get together. But at the same time, it is also the site that also divided the people and was a source of division of people. So rather, we have to find some ways to bring some synergy and that is able to take us outside of this system that separates us. And so I hope that this sacred city, sacred for also the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims, so 3 times sacred, I hope that this city will be a connection and will be really a way to guarantee that everybody can connect, because there's nobody that just at all or anything, somebody who has everything. So how can we connect with that spirit of humanity and to reach a certain wisdom? It is an enormous challenge. And regarding the policy that has been implemented lately, in particular, it's like an ostrich policy. It can increase the problems. And so we have really to work on these kinds of thoughts, and maybe we have to forget about the people who become, not to be so marginal. And so I was so happy when on December 8th, 193 countries voted for this International Life Day, because that is going in the right mindset.
I want to go to you, the sort of the youngest Abrahamic tradition to the next youngest and to the senior Abrahamic tradition.
What I'm going to say now, I know that a lot of people will not agree with me, and I hope that we can hold each other even if we have enormously different positions in those issues, because I think this is one of our challenges, to live together within those differences. But for a sustainable Jerusalem, I do believe in the Christian sense of the Imago Dei, that we all carry the image of God, right? And for the Imago Dei to exist is not only a spiritual concept, but is a very material one. And in that ways, I think from my Christian perspective, I think from a more of a liberation theologian, I have to attend for God's preferential option for the poor. And so when I think about Jerusalem, I cannot not think about the Palestinians. And I cannot not think about the ways in which Jerusalem will only be able to be sustainable and sustain itself if the Palestinians receive an equal share of their humanity, of their ability to hold that ground that also belong to them. And I think it is by justice and peace from the perspective of the marginalized, of the Palestinians, that I believe that all sides can be healed. Can be transformed, can be put together. But if every place, and if you ask me about Jerusalem, that's where I go. If you're talking about India, I'll go from the Dalits. If you talk about here, I'll go with the indigenous and the blacks and the homeless and the people that are in the margins. Because I think there is, especially in this new liberal system now, that people now worth what they can get, what it can be measured by. I think that's one of the fantastic ways in which our traditions can bring back the measurement, that we are not measured by anything we can get or not, but just by the sheer fact that we are people that were made by the image of God, and we all have the same stand everywhere.
So I think I'm not a politician. I don't know about the political solution. Of course, everybody's rights to live in justice and peace have to be respected. But I'm thinking in terms of Jerusalem as a holy city, because it's known as a holy city for the three religions. I think it's acknowledged to be a central piece for humanity as a sacred city. For us, the concept of the sacred is that which cannot be commodified or used or taken for my advantage, for my exclusive use. I cannot profit for it. That's what's sacred. In the Jewish tradition, something that is sacred, something that cannot be used, belongs to God. We can only share in it. So my hope, my prayer is that we can come, that humanity, or the peoples that live in Jerusalem, the peoples that have an attachment to Jerusalem, religiously or politically, will come to that understanding that this is not a place to fight over. This is not a place that belongs to us. It's not a place that can be used, that can be snatched from someone else, but a place that has to be shared. It's a place of oneness, as was mentioned before. And as I said before, it's a place that in our tradition connects heaven and earth. For now, I think there's a great disconnect between heaven and earth, because the connection will not be made between heaven and earth in the vertical, as we were talking before, while in the horizontal, we're all divided. Only when there's a oneness amongst us and a sense of harmony that we can create among us, then the connection with, metaphorically speaking, with heaven will be made. And that's what we have to work for. And I think we have to continue to promote and stimulate and support efforts like this, where people come to talk, to share, to envision together, and not to possess, but to share. And there are lots, by the way. I visit Jerusalem. I have the privilege of visiting Jerusalem quite frequently, and there are lots of people on all sides, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Palestinian, Israeli, that there are a lot of people working for this vision, but they have to be supported and they have to be encouraged. And it's a very, very difficult task in the climate in which we're living in that region and in the world in general. So we have to keep supporting this type of thing, you know, with music, with art, with exchanges, with religion, with spirituality, with prayer, with everything, everything. We have to use everything at our disposal to be able to support that vision.
As William Ury, the founder of Abraham Path Initiative, says, no matter what divides us, what connects us is far, far greater. And it is in the art, and it is in the music, and it is in the essence of the faith traditions that each of you have shared with us from the stage today. And it is equally available to us when we look at an art exhibit. And this is the gift that Karen, you and your fellow curators are giving us, and the library and CUNY and the other venues that are sharing this. So I encourage you, when we complete, to go downstairs and take a look at the exhibit, because that can be for us a shared sacred space where all of us have equal access to the beauty and the thought and the memory and the vertical. And so I will just conclude by thanking you, Cheikh Khaled Bentounes, Rabbi Rolando Matalon, and Cláudio Carvalhaes, for your gifts and for your leadership and for the hope and inspiration. Thank you.